Akratunta Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Shri Matre Namaha. Namaste everyone. In today's session we are going to review the Nama Maraali Manda Gamana. Vasinyadi Vak Devatas are describing the Namas in Shakti Kootam. Shakti Kootam is Moola Mantra's third Kootam. It is the region below the hip. This Nama, Maraali Manda Gamana, is the last Nama in Shakti Kootam. So let's review this Nama. There are several components in this Nama. Maraali Manda Gamana. Maraali. Maraali means a swan. Not just an ordinary swan, that too a female swan is Maraali. So wherever we see Maraali, it means it refers to a female swan. Mandam. Mandam is something that which is slow paced. Gamanam means a walk. We have seen a swan walk. How will a swan walk? It will walk slowly and gently. So the gait or the walk like that of the swan at a slow pace is the Maraali Manda Gamana. Now, Sri Lalitambika being the Uttama Stri, how will a Uttama Stri walk? They will walk slowly and gently and filled with Soundaryam. The way they walk, it will be filled with Soundaryam that would be so pleasant to look at. So, that is the aspect this Nama is worshipping as Maraali Manda Gamana. Sri Lalitambika is walking gently towards us. Now, in the last Nama, if you recollect, Sri Lalitambika has fully emerged out of Chidagni Kundam and she is walking towards us. Now, Vasinyadi Vak Devatas are describing that darshan and saying that she is walking at a very gentle Soundarya pace. That pace, that walking style, that looks like that of an Annam. Annam is a swan, swan's gait. That's the literal interpretation. How the swan walks, the walk of the Devi after coming out of the Chidagni Kundam and walking towards us resembles exactly like that. So that's the literal interpretation. But there are very deep meanings behind this Nama. Acharya in Soundarya Lahari describes this concept. In Soundarya Lahari, the shloka is recited as follows. पदन्यासक्रीड परिचयमिवारब्धु मनसः स्खलं तस्ते केलं भवनकलहंसान जहति अतस्तेषां शिक्षां सुभगमणिमञ्जीररणितः जलसा साक्षाणां चरणकमलं Charucharite. In this shloka, Acharya uses the term Bhavana Kala Hamsana Jahati. Let's look at the first interpretation of this shloka. Acharya is talking about these Hamsas. Maraali means Hamsa, a swan. Where are these swans? Acharya gives some examples here. He gives us hint. The Hamsas or the Maralis here are the swans in Kailasham. This is the first interpretation. Let's see what Acharya is saying here. Hamsa Gamanam, the elegant walk, Manda Gamanam is the elegant. The first meaning is that the Hamsas are walking very gently, very elegantly they are walking. Where are they walking? Bhavana Kala Hamsa. Bhava is Lord Shiva. Bhavanam means palace. Where is Lord Shiva's palace? Lord Shiva's palace is Kailasham. So, in the Kailasha Bhavanam, the Kalahamsas are following Sri Maharagni, Sri Lalitambika, the Empress of the universe. In Kailasha, all the swans are following Sri Lalitambika. That's the first interpretation. These royal swans are in the palace of Baba, Lord Shiva in Kailasham, so that the kids, Lord Ganesha and Lord Subramanya, can play with the swans. This is a very beautiful interpretation. This is one of the interpretation, the first interpretation for this Bhavana Kala Hamsana Jahati. Now, there is a second interpretation where Acharya hints us And who these hamsas are? They are not just ordinary swans, they are Kala hamsas. Kala hamsas are royal swans. Mm, So, by saying Kala hamsas, Acharya helps us to visualize this Nama. So, here Acharya describes in a way that there is a mommy swan, and there are all these baby swans walking behind the mommy. That is how we have to uh, visualize the picture of this Nama. Okay, so there is the Ambal is the Guru. She's walking in the front, and all the other sadhakas are walking behind her. That is the that is the second interpretation. Why everybody follows Ambal? Because Ambal is the teacher, and the Kailasam is the Maha Kailasam here in Sahasraram. So the Kalahamsas here are the Paramahamsas who are following, the Paramahamsas are following Sri Lalitambika. The Paramahamsas are following the path of Ambal in the Kundali Rupam. That is the reason for visualizing the Nama like this. They are following the Hamsa Gamanam from Devi. Hamsa Gamanam is the slow-paced breath. See, when we are uh, when we are not in our original state, that means when we are angry towards somebody, how will our breath be? It'll be like very fast. It'll be like we can see the breath going up and down at a very fast pace. It will not be Manda Gamanam. Whereas when we are in Shanti, when we are calm, when we know what we need to do, then our breath is slow paced. That means one who has conquered Rajo Guna and Tamo Guna, one who has Sattva Guna, only those Hamsas, Paramahamsas, they can have Manda Gamanam, the slow paced breath. So, here, the concept of breath is very beautifully described here. The Hamsa Gamanam is here not the physical walk. When we think of a gamana or a gait, we think of a walk which is physical. But here, it's not physical walk. It's the internal walk. See, Acharya says, Ambal has charu charitam, very good charitam, punya charitam. If someone leads a very good life with good values, like for example, we read Srimad Ramayana, we follow the path of Sri Rama because Rama is the leader and all of us follow Sri Rama. Like this, Ambal is the leader, we are all the followers. That is the interpretation Acharya is giving here. In the Kailasa Bhavanam, these Kalahamsas, the Paramahamsas, are following Sri Lalitambika because the Paramahamsas walk in the footsteps of Devi. Why do they want to walk in the footsteps of Devi? So they can have Manda Gamanam, slow-paced breath, and reach Kailasam in Sahasrara. That's the second interpretation Acharya is saying. So we have to recollect that Sri Lalita Sahasranama has profound intended meanings for each of the nama. Here, the intended meaning is that the walk of the Devi, the Gamanam, it's not just external or outside walking, but internally inside, walking inside as our prana Shakti. With Manda Gamanam, slow-paced breathing technique of pranayama, sadhakas reach the Parabrahmam. So the Ushvasam and the Nishvasam, the inhalation and the exhalation is the Hamsa Gamanam, Maraali Manda Gamana. The breath that we inhale and exhale is the walk that is being described here. In fact, a controlled breath at a slow and a steady pace is her Manda Gamanam. That is why those sages who have experienced this concept of Manda Gamanam, this who have a very good handle on this Manda Gamanam of that pranayama technique. Those sages are worshipped as Hamsas, Paramahamsas. That is why we worship great sages like Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. That Hamsa is the Maraali here. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He is Paramahamsa because the sage has got the has followed the Gamanam of Sri Lalitambika as Manda Gamanam, the slow-paced, the breath technique of Prana Upasana, the inhalation and exhalation of breath slowly. So God as the Prana Shakti walks in us as the Mukhya Pranam. That's the deep, profound meaning conveyed in this Nama. In this shloka in Soundarya Lahari, Acharya says, Padanyasa Krida Parichayam. So these swans that are in the Mahakailasam, they are learning how to place their footsteps on seeing Sri Lalitambika walk. So Maraali Manda Gamana. Usually, whenever we think of a walk, we say we walk like a swan. Swans are walking beautifully. But here in the shloka, if you see, Acharya says that swans themselves are learning to walk from Sri Lalitambika. So, Acharya is extolling the walk of Sri Lalitambika in this Nama Maraali Manda Gamana by saying that those that are examples of walking, the gait of walking, they themselves learn how to walk from Sri Lalitambika. That's how Acharya worships this Nama, enjoys this Nama. Here, Acharya says, Skalantat, Skalan, Skalantam. Skalantam means they're walking behind. They're trying and following to walk, and while walking, they're saying, I want to follow exactly like they're jumping and following, and while they are trying to walk, they slip in their practice. It is possible that they can slip in their practice of walking. They skalantam te kelam, like your walk. But what do? Na jahati. But even though they slip, they don't give up. To understand this concept, we have to think of a bike ride. When we learn to ride our bicycle, we fall several times in the initial stages. But what do? We don't give up. We again and again and again try and try, and finally we learn how to bike. The same concept here. When we fall or struggle in our sadhana, Ambal comes in the form of a guru and teaches how to walk in the path of Kundalini and progress in the Urdhva Margam, right? Go from all the way from Mooladharam all the way to Sahasraram. How to walk here. When we practice the sadhana of pranayama, the control of our breath, many times we might slip from our path because that's very common. When we sit for meditation, we ourselves can see every 2 minutes when we are sitting in our prayers, our mind goes somewhere. Our after 10 minutes, we come back saying that, oh, I'm doing my meditation. I have to bring my breath under control. I have to observe my breath. We're trying to be mindful. We try several times. We slip from our path, but then we say, okay, after 5 minutes, we come back. Yes, I'm coming. I'm going to meditate again. We again and again, we try and try and try and go in our path, right? So for Paramahamsas who are trying to go from Mooladharam all the way to Sahasraram, Ambal comes as Guru. When their mind goes and slips several times, Ambal as Guru comes and teaches as the leader of the swan how to progress in the Urdhva Margam so they can reach Shiva Shakti Aikyam in the Sahasrara. When going in the Kundali Margam, it is not easy to keep going all the way from Mooladhara to Sahasrara. Like we saw, Sadhaka falls down, slips down several times. So, Ambal comes as Guru Rupini and teaches how to ascend. See, um, that's why Ambal is the leader of the swan. That's how Acharya is helping us to visualize. This is the mommy swan. Mommy swan is walking in the front as the leader, and all the Paramahamsas, all the sadhakas walk behind her, in the with the Manda Gamanam, the slow-paced breathing technique. So Ambal can help us reach Shiva Shakti Aikyam. During this time, Ambal as Guru Rupini helps us ascend to in the Urdhva Margam, as well as Acharya says, Shubhaga Mani Manjira Ranita. Ambal gives mantropadesam, it seems, while we go in this path. If the sadhakas are sincere, Ambal gives the mantropadesam. How does Ambal give the mantropadesam? Is she opening her mouth and talking? Acharya is hinting how Ambal gives mantropathesam by saying Subhaga Mani Manjiram. Remember in the last Nama we said Ambal is wearing this divine anklets. That is the Manjiram here. Sinjana Mani Manjira Mandita Shri Padambuja. That's the previous Nama. So Acharya is connecting to that previous Nama and saying these anklets are not ordinary anklets. The Dwani from the anklets are mantra Dwani. See, if we wear an anklet and walk, it makes Dwani, but that Dwani everybody can hear. Whereas the Shubhaga Mani Manjiram, the Manjiram that Ambal wears, makes some Dwani that is only heard by the Paramahamsas in the Sahasraram. And what does Ambal do? Atas Tesham Siksham. Shiksha means the Ambal is teaching as Guru Rupini. She is teaching with instructions how to use the breath, the pranayama, to reach Sahasraram. See that. So Acharya greatly tells us how these two namas are related to each other. Previous nama was Sinjana Mani Manjira Mandita Shri Padambuja. That Mani Manjiram is heard when a Upasaka takes their breath in the Manda Gamanam to reach Shiva Shakti Aikyam from Mooladharam all the way to Sahasraram. That is the walk of the swan, Maraali Manda Gamana, slow-paced walking technique of the swan, of all the Paramahamsas following Sri Lalitambika. In Deivatin Kural, the divine scripture, its literal translation is voice of God. Deva means God, Kural means voice. Deivatin Kural, voice of God. Pujya Guru Sri Kanchi Mahaperiyava has bestowed this concept as Hamsa Natanam, dance of the Hamsa. Dance of the Hamsa means a swan, dance of the swan. So this concept is called Hamsa Natanam. That's the same that Vasinyadi Vak Devatas are worshipping in our Nama as Maraali Manda Gamana. This concept is called Ajapa Natanam. So the deity for this Nama is Sri Tyagaraja Swami in Thiruvarur. Lord Shiva as Sri Tyagaraja Swami here performs Ajapa Natanam. Let's first internalize Lord here and then understand how Lord Shiva here performs the Ajapa Natanam, because that's the deity for this Nama, says Acharya. In the divine shrine, the temple of Thiruvarur, Lord Shiva is worshipped as Sri Tyagaraja. Just like we say Chidambara Rahasyam in Chidambaram, here in Thiruvarur temple, Lord Tyagaraja is worshipped as having Lord Tyagaraja's Rahasyam. The Rahasyam, as part of this Rahasyam, only Lord's face is visible for darshan, and the rest of the body is supposed to be inscribed with very special secret mantras that only Lord's face is visible and rest of the body is completely covered with ornaments and flowers, it seems. On the day of Arudra Darshanam, Lord's feet also can be worshipped along with Lord's face. So this is the concept that is conveyed for Lord Tyagaraja. So let's first start with that. Now, how is that related to our Nama? So, Lord Tyagaraja in Thiruvarur is supposed to be performing the Hamsa Natanam. Maraali is Hamsa, the swan. The swan's Natanam, the slow-paced Hamsa Natanam, the breath that goes gently up and down, right? That Hamsa Natanam is supposed to be performed by Lord Tyagaraja, and this Nama describes, Acharya describes how Lord Tyagaraja performs that Hamsa Natanam. That is how this is connected to our Nama. And there is a story behind that. The story is that Lord Vishnu is residing in his Adisesha and he is in Yoga Nidra. And he has Lord Tyagaraja in Thiruvarur in his divine chest, as we can see here. So, what we call as Kundalini is what is sometimes equated to Adisesha, that Lord Vishnu sleeps in. This is equated to the Kundalini. And the sleep, Lord Vishnu's sleep, is not like our sleep. It's not that Lord Vishnu is sleeping on this big giant serpent. It's not like this is equated to Kundalini, and the sleep is not like our sleep. It is specially called as Yoga Nidra. So, Lord Vishnu is in his Yoga Nidra where Kundalini is at the top. Kundalini is at the uh, highest in Shiva Shakti Aikya state. So, our Nama is describing that Yoga Shastra of what happens at that time. So, Lord Vishnu is here in his Yoga Nidra and he is keeping Sri Tyagaraja in his divine chest as part of his Yoga Nidra. As and when Lord Vishnu inhales and exhales, Manda Gamanam, what happens? Vishnu is inhaling and Vishnu is exhaling. As and when Lord Vishnu inhales and exhales, he is keeping Lord Tyagaraja in his chest. So, with each inhalation, Lord Tyagaraja is performing a dance. With each exhalation, Lord Tyagaraja is performing a dance. So, as if in a jula, as if you are in a swing. With each breath that goes in, he's doing a natanam. With each breath that goes out, because he's literally on the chest of Lord Mahavishnu. So, Lord Tyagaraja, with each swing that goes in, each swing that goes out. Breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out. That is called as Hamsa Natanam or Ajapa Natanam. With every breath of Lord Mahavishnu, Lord Shiva, Lord Tyagaraja here moves to the rhythm of Lord Vishnu's breath. That movement is worshipped as the divine dance of Ajapa Natanam. It is called as the dance of Ajapa. What is this Ajapa? Why is it called Ajapa? Why is this Hamsa Natanam? The Hamsa is here the breath, right? So the breath that goes in, goes out. Both goes in, goes out. So that's called Hamsa Natanam or Ajapa Natanam. Why is it called Ajapa Natanam? See, Japam, when we say Rama, 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 Krishna, 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 Shiva, 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 Shiva. When we say that japam is something that we consciously say and do, that's called as a japam. But there is this concept of a japam that we don't have to put any effort on. A japam that happens by all by itself without any effort from us is called as a japam. It's called ajapa natanam. What is that japam that happens inside us without any effort from us? That is our breath, the swasam, the ushwasam, the breathing in. How do we breathe in? Do we put any effort to breathe consciously? No, it is a japam that happens automatically, whether we sleep, whether we are walking, whether we are running, whether we are sitting, whether we are talking. That breathing in happens automatically. That's called a japam. Without any effort, it will constantly. We don't have to say, oh, did I forget? Now I have to breathe. We don't have to say that. That japam happens all by itself. Nishwasam. Do we do anything to breathe out? No. That was the breathing in and the breathing out. That happens all by itself within us. So that concept is called as ajapam. So Lord Shiva and Lord Shakti, they are doing this ajapa natanam within us. That's what is called as Hamsa Natanam or Ajapa Natanam. Hamsa, hum is the Shiva and Sha is the Shakti. Shiva and Shakti, Hamsa, they go inside us as our breath every single time. And that concept is called as Hamsa Mantram. That Hamsa is the Maraali that is celebrated in this Nama. That Hamsa, how does that Hamsa walk in the breath of great Paramahamsas? It goes in a very slow pace. That's why it is called as Manda Gamanam. Acharya hints in Soundarya Lahari that the sadhaka hears at that time when the Paramahamsas control their breath and they do the pranayama and they are able to visualize the Gamanam, Ambaal's Hamsa Gamanam. Manda Gamanam, in their breath, the slow-paced, gentle breath, they are able to hear the Dwani from Mani Manjiram. Acharya says, Shubhaka Mani Manjira Ranita. That time, at the slow pace, when the sadhaka, the Paramahamsas, they are the Hamsas who reach the Shiva Shakti Aikyam in Kailasam, at that time, they hear the Dwani of Sri Lalitambika here. And Lalita Acharya says this in Soundarya Lahari by saying Subhaga Mani Manjira Ranita. In Lalita Sahasranama, Vasinyadi Vak Devatas have also kept the two namas right next to each other. Previous nama was Sinjana Mani Manjira Mandita Shri Padambuja. That Mani Manjiram, she's wearing on her the anklets that she's wearing on her foot. This nama says the sadhaka will hear that Maraali Manda Gamana, when the sadhaka is doing that upasana, that slow praised breathe, then at the Sahasraram they will hear the Mani Manjiram of Sri Lalitambika. So the walk of the goddess inside us in that slow and steady pace of breath, as our prana shakti itself is the Manda Gamanam. That means every time we take our breath, let's recollect with great kritagya, great happiness that Lord Shiva as the Hum and Lord Shakti as the Sa, Hum Sa, Maraali, are walking in us as our breath. And that is the concept that is worshipped in this Nama as Maraali Manda Gamana. As next steps, with Acharya's blessings, let's review the next Nama in Sri Lalita Sahasranama. Loka Samasta Shukino Bhavantu. Thank you so much, everyone.